I asked you guys to send me your Game Week 12 wildcard teams so we could rate them. And today we're going to rank 10 different drafts using different budgets to see which are the best wildcard teams you can possibly build, as well as which traps you can potentially avoid. Starting off with number 10. And of course, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you do drop a like and do subscribe. And if you want to get your team rated instantly, just use the link at the top of the description to get that team rating to see how your wildcard team stacks up against these ones. I'd be interested to know if any of you guys can get a really high rating on your wildcard team. But we are going to start off with this one. It is a 91% rated team from Abimanu, and there are a few traps in here, and this is why this team is coming up in number 10. In general, in the attacking areas, I really do like this team. We've got the likes of Salah, Palmer, Saka, and Burmo in midfield. You know, that's your standard midfield that a lot of people will go for on a wild card. Up front, we've got Cunha in there, very popular. We've also got Wood and Jackson. Not my two favorite picks. Jackson's pretty decent. Wood, not super keen on the fixtures, but that's maybe a preference thing from me. But there are a few big traps in this team, and the main one here is Kelleher in goal. Not keen on this at all. We're kind of expecting Alisson to be back in the Liverpool team very, very soon. It could even be in Game Week 12 where Alisson is back. So unfortunately, Kelleher is just not going to be an option for our FPL teams. We've also got the likes of Lewis on the bench there. I think there's going to be big rotation risk for Lewis ahead of a busy fixture run for all of the Premier League teams. We know what Pep rotation is like, and Lewis seems to be a player who regularly suffers from that Pep roulette. We've also got Keane in here, not too keen on this pick at all. He's now 4.3 million, and he's just not going to be in the team for Everton anymore. Branthwaite has replaced him in the starting 11, so seems like a bit of a waste of a slot there for me. This team actually cost 103.3 million, and considering so much money has been spent on this team, there are a lot of very significant weaknesses in there. So I would be looking to remove the likes of Kelleher, Keane, and probably Lewis, and try and see if we can find some replacements for these guys. I mean, if we look for defenders, I would maybe be looking at the likes of Hall for a cheap defender there. And if you want to go for an ultra cheap defender, I think Okoli is maybe my favorite 4 million defender. You could possibly go for him. But honestly, if you've got both Virgil, Gabriel, you've got Ait-Nouri in there, and you've got Lewis Hall as well, you can probably afford to just go for a 3.9 million defender here, take that budget down a little bit, and allowing you to upgrade the goalkeeper to someone like Sanchez would maybe work in here, maybe Verbruggen, maybe Sells at a push, but we'll put in Sanchez in there, making this team slightly cheaper, and actually I think it makes this team a little bit better as well. So, like the look of this team now, this really improves it in my opinion. We're going to click make the transfers, and immediately you can see this turns into a 96% rated team. We could even boost up maybe even more if we put the likes of Hall ahead of Ait-Nouri for Game Week 12, because we do see that we do have a fairly difficult fixture here for Ait-Nouri away against Fulham in Game Week 12. But that is the first team. That is number 10 on our list. We are going to move on to some slightly better drafts from here. Next up, we do have this team from FPL MUNNU. This is 102.3 million, and we have a Haaland draft here. I know some of you guys are considering going for Haaland on a wild card, and hopefully from this we can see what that means you have to sacrifice, because if you're going for Haaland in your wild card, sacrifices do need to be made here. This is a 94% rated team, so a little bit better than the last one, but I don't think it is quite perfect. A couple of reasons for that. First of all, there are two players in this team that are actually due a price drop. So if you hold on to these players in your wildcard drafts for now, these players are going to cost you team value. So actually, Turner and Dunk both due a drop in price before the next FPL deadline. So if you remove them from your drafts now, you can bring them back later into your team at that cheaper price. So I definitely would recommend trying something like that. With Turner in particular, if you want to go for a non-playing goalkeeper, so if you're not going for Fabianski, I would just downgrade him straight away to Cahill. Cahill was the only 3.9 million goalkeeper in the game at the moment, but Turner could become that in the near future. So one of those is going to work for a cheap 3.9 million goalkeeper if you're not worried about having a Fabianski on your bench. I'm not super keen on Harwood Bellis at 4.1 million either. Maybe we can find some other options there, but in general, with a player like Harwood Bellis, you're never going to play him. This team is clearly not looking to play that 5th defender. Again, go for a 3.9, save a little bit of money there. You might actually be happy that you saved that bit of money for maybe transfers in the future. Now, the defense is in general pretty weak in this team. However, I don't think it is too bad. It's a bit of a shame you have to play Rodgers every week. If we could have maybe someone to rotate with as our midfielder instead of Winks, if we could maybe get Winks to Semenyo somehow, that would be amazing. The way to maybe gain a little bit of money out of this team so you can make that Winks to Semenyo upgrade could possibly involve taking Welbeck down to João Pedro, for example. This team is still costs 103 million, so maybe still too expensive, but that's what Haaland does. It makes it very difficult to really have a a decent team outside of it. Maybe Cunha is a player that could be sacrificed here as well to try and get this team back in budget. But I don't like the idea of having no bench cover for an attacker and being forced to play Rodgers every week. Not super keen on that. It could work, but the defense in this team, I think, has taken a real big hit just to get Haaland in alongside Salah, Saka, and Palmer. If you're going to have all of these premiums in your team, yeah, you may find yourself a little short in other areas, but maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but it is worth having a look at this team and seeing kind of what it looks like. But in general, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to find good balance with all of these premium attackers, and you can only captain one at a time as well. So, yeah, I'm not sure if it's worth that investment, but I'll leave that, guys, for you to decide. Now, this team from Tim, I'm calling the benching headache team because we've got a really strong midfield of Salah, Saka, Palmer, Fernandes, and Mbeumo. Absolutely love this as an attacking 5-man midfield. Also, really love this front three of Isak, Cunha, and João Pedro. The problem is, you're going to have to bench one each week, and it's very difficult to say who is to be benched. And I would definitely argue that if you do have a player like Mbeumo, who you maybe can bench in this Everton away fixture, well, after that, the fixtures are pretty weak in general for Brentford after Leicester in 13. So if you're, maybe thinking about benching Mbeumo in game week 12 anyway, you can cover him for game week 12, and you can also cover him in the following game week as well. All of the attackers have good fixtures in game week 13 as well. Is there any point in having Mbeumo in this team? And as such, can we maybe use some of the budget to upgrade some of these other areas of the team? Maybe a defender, get an Arsenal defender, get a Liverpool defender in this team. Maybe that could be the solution to that. One other thing I don't like about this team is Van den Berg, and at 4.1 million, just not the one. You're never going to play him, and I think the hype around Brentford defensive assets is probably a thing of the past now. Again, you're never going to play him. Go for a 3.9. If you really do want a 4 million defender, maybe go slightly cheaper, go for a Coley or maybe a Southampton defender possibly, or an Ipswich defender. Totally up to you, but we can shave off 0.1 million there easily, and I think even 0.2 million by going for a 3.9 there. So that's probably what I would do to this team if it was up to me. But in general, there are a lot of positives from this team, but there are also some weaknesses. The biggest one is the benching headache. Who do you bench each week? It's just going to cause you trouble every week. You're going to bench a lot of points. Do you need to have all of these amazing players when you can't play them all? In 7th place, we have this team from FPL Connect. It's a 95% rated team here. And again, we're hitting a lot of the right notes here with the midfielders. Love this midfield. It doesn't have Saka, but it has managed to get Haaland in this team. And I think if you have to sacrifice one of your big premiums for Haaland, Saka is probably the way to go. Now, of course, sacrifices have to be made in order to get Haaland in your team, but we still have got some Arsenal defensive coverage with Raya as our pick in the goal here. We have got Winks, but because there's no Rodgers on the field, I don't mind that as much. You would be forced to play Strand Larsen every week, which I don't know if it was an amazing thing, having both Strand Larsen and João Pedro playing every single game week, but hey, it's okay. It's not too bad. One other issue with this team, there's no defensive cover. You're never going to play Bednarek. I put Samuels in this team for the sake of the video, but actually the draft that was sent to me had Barco in the team. A real throwback there. Couldn't even add him into this draft because he's not in the game anymore, so I can't recreate that one. But if you're going to have like a non-playing defender who isn't even at the club anymore, down to 3.9, down to Burgess. Remember, guys, you don't have to spend all of your money, and sometimes leaving a little bit of money in the bank could be a very nice thing to do indeed. So this is what the team would look like. The bench is super, super weak. There is some concerns about the occasional benching for even the starting defenders, and it would be nice to have some coverage there. That's why this team is only in 7th place. I do think there are some fragilities. Although, in general, to have Haaland in this team, I still think it is a pretty strong team for a Haaland draft, I suppose. So it's definitely worth having a look at, having a conversation about. Let me know what you think, guys. Is this the best Haaland draft you've seen for Wildcard? Or do you think you could do a better Haaland draft? I think if I was to go for a Haaland team, the team would probably look a little bit like this. I would maybe try and sacrifice Raya down to a cheaper goalkeeper, however, just to try and upgrade the defense a little bit. Maybe bring on a budget, well, 4.3 million defender on the bench to just make things a little bit better. Some players I like, Anderson, for example, 4.3. If Dunk does go down to 4.3, he is going to be another bench option for you there. And I would try and find a little bit of spare budget just to improve that bench just a little bit. Get yourself some bench cover. So this team from FPL Bliss suffers from the same problem of that benching headache with Saka, Palmer, Fernandes, Salah and Mbeumo as the midfielders and Cunha, Isak and João Pedro as the 3 forwards. Now, this for me, even though it's 96% rated, I really like this team in general. I think this is one of the stronger teams we have seen in this video. Possibly my favorite so far, and maybe even one of my favorites in the entire video. I have used the Fantasy Football Hub team rating tool, though, to try and give a more objective rating on these teams, so I don't let my personal influence or like kind of preferences influence the decision too much. So I love this team. I do really like this team. We've got a few things I really like in general. One of those things is Jurrien Timber. And Jurrien Timber is now probably nailed on for Arsenal for the next 8, 9, 10 game weeks because of Ben White's long-term injury. He's having surgery. He's going to be out for a long while, which means Timber is going to play at right back for Arsenal for a sustained period of time. And you can get him for 5.5 million. So really love this pick. I like Anderson as a pick. I like Hall as a pick. I like Sanchez as a goalkeeper. I like Nori on the bench for game week 12 and then put him into the first 11 from game week 13 onwards, most likely. In general, it's a really, really strong team, and I applaud you, FPL Bliss. You've created some bliss with a team like this, but you do still have the benching headache, and that is not going to be very much bliss. So therefore, maybe it's worth sacrificing Mbeumo and maybe upgrading one of these defenders. Could we upgrade maybe like an Anderson or a Hall, possibly to a Liverpool defender after downgrading Mbeumo? If so, fantastic. This might be a little bit too expensive for some people at 102.3 million. But again, Mbeumo would be the player I would sacrifice in order to make this team a little bit cheaper and possibly reinvest in the defensive areas. But love this team. I think this team has been harshly rated by the Hub AI at 96%. Crazy. So this team from FPL Morris is a 97% rated team, and this is like your ultimate template team. This is probably, I don't want to say boring, but this is like your bog standard wildcard game week 12. It hits every single of the typical notes that we would expect. We've got Arsenal defenders, we've got Liverpool defenders, we've got a Chelsea defender on the bench. Verbruggen at 4.5 is probably going to be one of the most popular goalkeepers as well. And we've got that same front three we keep talking about, similar midfield to that we usually talk about. We've got Rodgers in here as well. No Bruno Fernandes. This is super safe, super sensible. Very little can go wrong with this team. I'm not quite sure about the defender rotations, who would play in each game week, but there's enough players that are decent defenders that you can pick up points each week. Not a huge amount of attacking potential with the defenders, and that's why I don't think this team is terribly exciting, but it is very safe, and it is definitely a team that will tick along and get you some decent points. So definitely, if you're looking to build a wildcard team for Game Week 12, something like this is probably something that would be recommended for all people. Very good value for money at 101.2 million as well. It's a very good team. So this is another one of my favorite teams, and this is coming in from FPL AG. And the difference between this team and some of the others we've looked at is this team does not have Isak in it, and it's a play on a slightly different structure. So rather than go for Isak, you've got that typical template 5-man midfield and just having Cunha and João Pedro instead of having Isak in there. We've got a cheap Delap on the bench. He could be any forward really, Raul Jimenez if you like him, or maybe Wissa, or I'm not sure. There's a whole bunch of different forwards you could put in that particular position. One concern is the double Arsenal defence. I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of the double Arsenal defence on Wildcard, but this, again, the team is hitting a lot of the right notes. We've got a lot of the players we keep talking about in this video, and it's just a different play on it with the structure of the attack, which I definitely think is viable, definitely could work if you prefer to have both Bruno and Mbeumo instead of having Isak in that draft. Okay, we're going up the ranks here a little bit now. We're getting to the top teams, and this is actually the only draft I've seen with Watkins in the team. And Watkins actually has some really good fixtures coming up in the very near future, so he could be a really interesting. I know he doesn't seem like a differential at 22.7%, but actually a lot of people don't have Watkins in their team, so that could be a difference maker in a team like this. And even with Watkins, we've still got Isak, we've still got Salah, Palmer, Saka, we don't have a Bruno, we don't have an Mbeumo, but instead we have a rotation between Rodgers and Semenyo, which is pretty nice. All of the defensive notes have been hit, with the exception of maybe a Chelsea defender, so all in all, this is a really nice team and a very different play on the attack, going for Watkins and a Semenyo Rodgers rotation rather than something, maybe something a little bit different. But we got to get to these top teams, so let's keep moving on. So guys, I know in the world a lot of people are worried about AI taking our jobs, but I have to say, I look at this team and seeing that it has got a 98% AI rating, I just disagree. In general, when you look at the attack on the starting 11 of this team, amazing. It looks really, really strong. But then I look at the goalkeeper situation, Areola and Fabianski, and I understand this is probably to save a bit of money by going for a super cheap Areola in goal, but surely we can find a way of doing better than that, rather than being forced to play a West Ham goalkeeper every week. That sounds like utter chaos, but I think I can fix this team genuinely to make it a legit 98% rated team, even by keeping the likes of Gvardiol. And how we're going to do that is we are going to drop Bednarek down to Burgess. We're going to save 0.1 there. We're going to save 0.1 by downgrading a Fabianski to a Cahill. That puts our 0.2 in the bank, I suppose, to keep the team value consistent to where it started, and go for Verbruggen instead. And suddenly, yes, it is a little weak on the bench with Winks there. Robinson can cover occasionally, but that builds this team up to 99% rated. This could be one of the best teams in the entire video with just those couple of changes, because we got Arsenal, we've got Man City defensive cover there if you do like Gvardiol. We've got that super strong attack that we've seen so often in this video. And Robinson and Hall rotation could potentially work as well. Now, this team is a team I liked. Before, that West Ham goalkeeper combination just was not for me at all. I don't know if you guys agree. Could you deal with playing a West Ham goalkeeper every week? No way, surely not. Which takes us to the final team in this video, the number one team in my opinion, and that is going to be FPL Mate. This is an 102.1 million team with what I consider to be a phenomenal defensive rotation. It really is very, very strong. I was looking through each game week, and Hall, Anderson, Konsa, and Dunk, all sensible, safe kind of defenders to go for, and each week they rotate very nicely, so you've always got two defenders with favorable fixtures. Very, very impressive to figure out a rotation like that. I think this works really, really nicely. We can play Anderson in this game week, for example, for that Southampton home fixture. It's just, the rotation for the defenders just works. It just works. It's a little safe with the likes of Konsa in there, but I don't mind that too much. Sometimes it's better to go safe with Konsa than risky with Adina. Like I said, be careful on Dunk. He is going to drop to 3.9. And as for that sub goalkeeper, just drop him down to Cahill for that 3.9 goalkeeper, or whatever other 3.9 goalkeeper arrives before deadline. And in general, you've got a strong team here. You're not going to play Rodgers every week. You're probably going to play Mbeumo. Rodgers is nice backup. We have both Isak and Jackson in here, which I think is really, really nice. No Bruno Fernandes, but I don't think that's too much of a big deal. Double Arsenal defense is maybe a little bit techie, but some people might actually like that. If I had to change this a little bit myself, I would maybe change to Sanchez here, and maybe that would allow me to upgrade Mbermo to Bruno Fernandes. And would this increase the rating at all? Let's find out. Let's just switch that to that. Maybe it won't change the rating because obviously the AI seems to like Raya as a goalkeeper. He's got pretty high predicted points there, but look, this team is decent, man. This team is very, very decent. It was decent before. It's decent even after a couple of changes from me. And I think this could definitely work for you guys. And that is the #1 team in this video, according to the team rating tool, the Fantasy Football Hub do provide. Of course, guys, make sure you do use the link at the top of the description if you want to get your instant team rating yourself. And let me know if any of you guys have 98% rated teams, 99%, 100%, or has anyone got some super low ratings as well? Whatever your rating is, do let me know in the comment section. It's completely free to try out. You can get a free trial as well to get full access, which is really good at the moment. And yeah, I think you guys are going to get some benefit from that. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know by leaving a like, and let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. Do subscribe if you're new around here. Check out another video if you would like to. And aside from that, I will see you later, mates, for another video. Bye-bye.